But when it comes to something as life and death important as to what to feed yourself and your family, I want to get at the truth.
Britain is too fat and is getting fatter.
People are clueless. I'm doing this because I'm a physician and I care about people and I want people to live long, healthy lives. I'm an advocate of an evidence-based diet, and that just so happens to be a plant-based diet. So it's the only diet ever proven to reverse heart disease, #1 killer here in the UK. If you refuse to improve your diet and lifestyle, you're going to have that disease for the rest of your life. That's why you have to take those drugs every day for the rest of your life. If you actually want to treat the cause, not only can you get rid of the disease, period, but it actually works better. But of course, where's the money in that?
Researchers say it's particularly alarming in the developing world, where people are choosing to spend their increasing disposable income on fatty, sugary foods.
There's this corrupting commercial influence in science in general, medicine and nutrition particularly. The system is just not set up to reward healthy behaviors. And unfortunately, what's most profitable happens to be what's least healthy.
It's a highly competitive, highly secretive industry with one goal: food that is simply irresistible.
They just try to kind of inspire people to fit some of the healthiest of healthy foods in their daily diets. That's what keeps me going, is how many people who, if they knew it, would change. So all we need to do, open up their mind and have people try it. And what's going to keep me in this for the long run, eating as many whole plant foods as possible. And that's when I retire. When I retire, it's not when everyone's eating healthy. Everybody's just informed.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Michael Greger is back on London Real, and if you remember him from the previous visit, he is a big fan of a plant-based diet, and his book, called How Not to Die, outlines how the top 15 leading causes of death can be minimized by eating a whole food plant-based diet. Now, as you know, last year when I ran my Ironman race and made the movie Iron Mind, I went completely plant-based. And so I love having these discussions, but I also love challenging Dr. Greger on some of his assumptions. And that's what I did during this show. He also has a brand new book called How Not to Diet that's coming out and talks all about the food choices we make. And he's a technical advisor for the brand new documentary film, The Game Changers. And again, we went back and forth about some of the science and pseudoscience involved in that film. And look, I love a healthy debate. I'm no longer completely plant-based, but I do see a lot of the benefits of eating whole foods and plants. Let the discussion continue. One thing is for certain, I love Michael's energy and his dedication to this entire field, and I know you're going to enjoy this incredible episode with Dr. Michael Greger. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Michael Greger, the American physician, author, and professional speaker on public health issues, particularly the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet. You've appeared in numerous documentary films, including What the Health, Eating You Alive, and most recently as scientific advisor on The Game Changers. Your 2015 book, How Not to Die, is a New York Times bestseller, and your upcoming book, How Not to Diet, explores cutting-edge science behind long-term weight loss. Dr. Greger, welcome back to London Real.
So happy to be back. And the next book, a future New York Times bestseller. #1, that's my goal, I'm hoping.
I mean, it would be stupid to bet against you. I mean, last time you were here, I think How Not to Die had just come out, or it was fairly recent, right? About 2.5 years ago. And it did pretty good, right?
Amazing. So 33 languages now. Sold around the world. We're at about 750,000 copies.
Wow.
23rd printing, something like that. Yeah, really amazing.
Why is it so popular?
The title helps, I think. I mean, it's kind of
Title helps, but titles don't sell books.
Right. No, but just to get people interested.
Yeah.
And then they realize, it's just a very simple kind of look. The first half of the book, right? 15 chapters, each of the 15 leading causes of death. Talk about the role of diet, may play in preventing, arresting, reversing each of our top 15 killers. So bang, bang, bang. You got someone with, someone just diagnosed with breast cancer, go straight to the chapter. It's kind of this modular.
Right.
Straight to the diabetes chapter, straight to the Alzheimer's, And then second half of the book really centered around, that was the why and then the how-to. I wanted to make a practical guide, not just kind of a reference book with the thousands of citations, but wanted day-to-day grocery store type decisions. Centers around my daily dozen checklist of all the things I encourage people to fit into their daily routine. So greens every day, the healthiest vegetables; berries every day, the healthiest fruits; tablespoon of ground flaxseed, quarter teaspoon of turmeric, the best beverages, best sweeteners; how much exercise to get every day. Really just try to kind of inspire people to fit some of the healthiest of healthy foods in their daily diets.
Yeah, and I was telling you, one of our very first hires here, his mom, watched your episode, and she went really big on the whole thing. It really changed your life.
That's the way to do it. That's why I do it.
I'm sure you hear thousands of those stories.
I love it. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Is, I go back to the same cities, year after year, and you get those stories of not just individuals, but entire families, right? Revolutionizing their health and just, and so nothing, and just people, crying all of a sudden, their diabetes is gone. They're going to see their grandkids grow up. That's why I do. So, most of my life is actually not in the public eye. So that's one out of every 3 years. I'm on a kind of 3-year book cycle. Where one, I'm out on the road full time. But the other two is I'm working on the next book. Right?
Yeah.
And that's all hunkered down in basement library with no human contacts, me and my laptop screen. And it's what keeps me going day after day, those long hours, it's the stories in the back of my mind. You're echoing in the back of my mind. And those images, I see their faces,
Because I've heard writing a book is the loneliest thing to do.
Oh, well, yeah. And I don't just, I'm all in. When I get into book writing mode, everything gets shut out.
Why is that?
Well, it has to be. You have to immerse yourself. It's learning a new language or something. So for this obesity book, for example, How Not to Diet, there's 500,000 papers written in the peer-reviewed scientific literature in the English language on obesity, right? With 100 new ones every day. So, every hour, I'm a couple, go to sleep, forget about it. You're way behind, right? So even people in the field can't keep up with beyond their own little narrow subspecialized domain, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a really conflicted literature. So simple research questions like, should you ideally eat before or after you exercise? Or should you, should you skip breakfast or not in terms of weight loss? And it turns into 1,000 article research projects. So that's a book-length research for one little teeny question. Some studies say one thing, some studies say the other. You have to look at each study, read the primary literature, and say, wait a second, why did this study have a different outcome than this? What's the difference in their patient populations, the difference in their interventions? And so you can't get a phone call in the middle of that, right? You need to just complete, and then that's when the synthesis happens. That's when, wait a second, could that one disparate little thing I learned in that article written in the 50s have something to do with this article here? And then you bring it all together, right? And I read the literature chronologically, always start with the oldest, right? So I can kind of get my heads into the research, just so it's like a detective story for me. I don't want to read the recent review and get swayed by whatever some contemporary reviewer's thinking about it. I want to read the original literature, the primary literature, and I want to go through it as the researchers did, plotting what's the next research question. Are they going to get answered? Are they going to remain unanswered? And so every little research question is this whole kind of historical deep dive. And you can't, if you get interrupted, it takes you a while to kind of get back into that. And so then things start to make sense. Then the connections start to come. Otherwise, it's just another kind of superficial review that anyone could do.
Yeah, you don't want to write that book, do you?
So it's like a review of reviews. Okay, if you're writing a term paper or something, all right, you get the most recent meta-analyses, most recent systematic reviews, and you just say, okay, this is what the literature says. No. this is what these bunch of reviewers say the literature says, right? But when it comes to something as life and death important as to what to feed yourself and your family, I want to get at the truth. And as far as I could tell, this hadn't been done in the obesity arena. And so the harder it became, the more I realized how valuable the project was. Because, I mean, there's just no way, like a practicing physician could delve this deep. Yeah. And then, someone off the street, I mean, it's just completely, there's no way they could keep up.
Did you ever think you're bitten off more than you could chew?
Oh, yes. And in fact, I realized that after I started working on it. I mean, so I did it the absolute wrong way. I said, look, I'm going to give myself a year to write the book. Like, I just couldn't just stand the thought psychologically.
You had this book planned a while ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
You always
I knew this
like
was coming.
5 or 6 years
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
future.
So I think I've got like the next 4 books planned out.
Right.
So that's
the last time you were
years
here,
or so.
You had already talked about How Not to Diet and then How Not to Age.
Yeah, that's the next one, 2022, right?
Yeah, you still got other books already planned after that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm always, the research is always pouring in. I'm already doing it just to get videos up on the website. But it's the deep dive that happens. So I gave myself a year, and then I realized how much the literature was. And I said, wait a second, I can't do it in a year. There's no way. I mean, you could just parse it out. I can read, it takes me this long to read a study on average. It takes me this long to annotate it. It takes me this long. There's just not that many hours. And so even though I have this whole research team now, right, where I have 14 people churning through studies, I got people that will pull articles from any library in the world, basically.
Right. And you're also publishing daily on your website,
well,
right?
So actually, that's the 3rd year. So 1 year I write the book. 1 year I go around the world speaking about the book. And that 3rd year is I script out 3 years worth of videos for Nutrition Facts.
3
so
years.
Little people know,
yeah.
right? So some video comes up, today's video. So people come up to me all the time. I love this morning's video. I'm like, what's this morning's video? Like, I don't even, because I may have scripted that video a year ago, and I just have to pray the broccoli's still good for you, that it's not outdated by the time that, but yeah, no, because there's no way I can do it all together.
Okay.
Yeah. At
now,
the same time.
the How Not to Die concluded pretty much that plant-based is the way to not die from those 15 different ailments, right?
I mean, it's the best thing we can do in terms of, so it's the only diet ever proven to reverse heart disease, #1 killer here in the UK, and in much of the Western world. Right. Only diet ever to reverse our #1 killer in the majority of patients. No other diet. So, I mean, if that's all a plant-based diet could do, then, reverse our #1 killer. Shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? So that's really where I ended that book. And the fact they can also be so effective in prevent, arrest, and reverse other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. It would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming.
Right.
And so that's really where it left.
And the top 5 in that book were, like you said, diabetes, heart disease. What were some of the other?
No, so number one heart disease, number 2 cancer, right? And then depending on country we're going to, there's stroke, Alzheimer's, now up to actually 3, not for premature death, but for death overall here in the UK. Okay. Alzheimer's is skyrocketing.
Yeah, we need to talk about that today.
Okay.
So you came to the conclusion of that book, and it's like, all right, plant-based for all this stuff. Now you go into this book, How Not to Diet. How do you remain agnostic while you're pouring through all the research and think, okay, I'm trying to find the best stuff,
right?
But you just wrote a book that said plants are the best stuff.
Right.
So how do you do that? And you've gone on record to say that nobody should ask you what to eat. They should understand it themselves, right? They should make the decisions themselves.
Would they ask me? Right. So certainly, but I don't even want them to ask my opinion. I don't have opinions. All I can say is I can show you what the science shows, right? Like, what do you think about this? What do you mean I think about this? Who cares what I think about this? Who cares what I eat? Who cares what? It's what does the science show, right? It's your body, your choice. You want to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, go bungee jumping? It's your body, your choice. But as a physician, all I can do is share with you, based on knowledge and experience, people in your situation who continue to do X, Y, and Z, here are the predictable consequences of your actions. And then it's up to you. right? That's the informed consent. That's all I care about.
And that's important because, look, I spent a year plant-based last year doing my Ironman race. We made a movie about it, and it was great. But I also understood there's a lot of people get caught up emotionally in the movement. There's also the vegan movement, which I know you don't call yourself a vegan because you're like, I'm plant-based. Vegan tells you, I think you told me last time, what not to eat
Right.
and what not to wear and that kind of thing.
Right.
And I've seen the kind of a cult go around it, and sometimes people get very emotional, and that way it's not scientific anymore. And that's a little frustrating about the movement.
There's a religiosity, right? There's this kind of...
How does that make you feel?
There's a zealotry involved. And the downside, and anybody, you come across something and you make this important realization. There's this natural urge to like, wow, I didn't realize this, and you want to go preach out and tell everybody about it, especially the people that you love, the people you care about. You want to go out and be like, wait a second, do you know that you don't have to die from heart disease? You don't have to, you can reverse your diabetes. Of course, you're going to have that passion, especially for those closest for you that you want around for a little while, right?
Yeah.
But that kind of preachiness, no one wants to be told, what to do, particularly what to eat. Very personal decision.
Very personal, right?
It's tied into family and culture and absolutely.
In America, it seems like you don't tell in America, it just
yeah.
But
Hands
food
up,
is almost like it should be one of the amendments, right? My right to bear arms and right to eat what I want.
Right. Apple pies in our veins.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
You're like you try to then stick really to the science.
So it's all about the science, right? And so open at all times for any argument. People, as you as you open in the bio, he's an advocate of a plant-based diet. I'm an advocate of an evidence-based diet, and that just so happens to be a plant-based diet. But that my loyalty is to the science. My loyalty is not to any particular finding of the science.
What if there was 100 studies that were published tomorrow with a billion sample size that said red meat was the best diet going forward?
Then I'd tell people to eat steak. I tell people to eat steak.
I appreciate that about you.
Well, no. But that's just, you got to follow the science, right? It's like if smoking all of a sudden is going to extend my life. I don't like the stuff, but and look, I may choose not to smoke, but I tell people, we're wrong. Go out there and smoke if you want to live long.
Okay. All right. So you go in to do this How Not to Diet. What were some of the big things that started materializing as you're gelling and getting all this stuff? And again, you're underground, literally and figuratively. And I know because I reached out to you last year to actually do a Skype call for our documentary, and you said no, and it hurt my feelings. But I thought he's writing another big book, and people should also know that you donate the profits of your book to charity. That's a big deal.
No.
That's a lot of money for your last book.
Well, no. But it's so important from so many reasons. It was Nathan Pritikin saving my grandmother. I want to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family. That's really what the motivation is. Yet there's this corrupting commercial influence in science in general, medicine and nutrition particularly, is I didn't want to just get lumped in. So even if you're not selling some brand of snake oil supplements or foods, the fact that you're selling your book, you're selling your, then I didn't want to get, you're only telling people to eat X, Y, and Z because you want to sell a book telling people this X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to have that conflict, even that perceived conflict of interest. So it's like I'm doing this because I'm a physician and I care about people and I want people to live long, healthy lives, period, full stop. And that was very important to me.
Where does that money go?
So it's all, I don't even see, it's not that I donated to charity, it's in the book contract that it never comes to me, period. And so it goes to a donor advised fund and then, whatever, and then can go to any 501c3.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's kind of limited to U.S. nonprofits, but often you can find kind of U.S. affiliates elsewhere if you want to donate money around the world.
And there must be a chunk of change if you're selling 750,000 copies of books.
Even the advance for the new book, it was $1.5 million.
And it goes into charity.
All charity. It's
crazy.
You mentioned, then the royalties too. everything. Every penny.
It's a lot of money. You mentioned Nathan and your grandmother. Can we tell that story really quickly? Just give people some context. Because it's important for them to know that there is a personal side of you that motivates you. It's not.
Well, this is how I came up. I would like to think, well, I'm just a scientist and I just found the science, right? But what drew me to even look into this was the story of my grandmother growing up. My dad's mom who, I was just a kid when she was sent home in a wheelchair with end-stage heart disease to die.
Wow. Where'd you grow up and what year was this?
So this is in the 70s. Okay. I was like 9 years old. She was living in Miami, and her life was over. She already had so many bypass surgeries. She basically run out of plumbing at some point. You get so scarred up inside, you can't even go back in. And so there's nothing more the medical profession would do, send her home to die, age 65, right? And then on 60 Minutes, there was a story about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, who was starting this new clinic up in California, claiming he could reverse heart disease with diet, which the fact that heart disease reversal, period, was thought impossible. I mean, it's just thought you get worse, and you die. Like most people think of diabetes today. You get worse, and you die. And then he came out and said, no, we can actually reverse heart disease, open up arteries without drugs, without surgery. Come to my clinic, I'll show you how to do it.
And this is 70s, 80s when he said this?
Late 70s.
Late 70s,
yeah.
okay.
Started to open the clinic. And so my
60 Minutes, by the way, so people know, that was the only way you could hear about things back then. I mean, that was kind of the internet. That and Oprah.
Right. That was the big, right.
Especially for new ideas. You wouldn't hear that on the news.
And so somehow she made the cross-country trek in her condition to become one of his first patients. She's actually featured in Pritikin's biography called The Man Who Heals America's Heart. Talks about Frances GREGER, describing her as one of the death's door people, where, they wheeled her in and she walked out. In fact, within 3 weeks, she was walking 10 miles a day. She was given
3 weeks.
3 weeks. It was a graded exercise program along with plant-based diet. And she, because although it may take months for the actual plaque to open up, you can get an immediate improvement in the function, arterial function, even though the arterial structure improvement can take months. Okay. But within weeks, you can get 80-90% of angina gone. That crushing fast. Chest pain. That fast, meaning that could have happened a year before, 10 years before. It never happened to happen in the first place. Like your body wanted to be healthy, but you were stabbing it with a fork 3 times a day, and all you had to do is just stop the re-injuring, and your body can heal on itself. Right?
Does it happen to anyone, or is it specific people have that reaction, or will most people have
most people. Most people. Okay. So Ornish's work showed that about 80% of people actually get that clinical reversal, and the earlier you can catch it, the better. But one of the things about medical training I learned that I think was one of the most kind of hopeful signs was that within 15 years of stopping smoking, your lung cancer risk approaches that of a lifelong non-smoker. Isn't that amazing? Your lungs can clear out all that tar, and eventually it's almost as if you never started smoking at all. Yeah. And every morning of our smoking life, that healing process starts to wham, first cigarette of the day, re-injuring our lungs with every puff, just like we can re-injure our arteries with every bite. When all we had to do all along, the miracle cure, is just stand back, stop re-damaging ourselves, and let our body's natural healing processes bring us back towards health. Right? Yeah. The human body is like a self-healing machine. We just have to stand back and let our body work its magic. Right?
Yeah, I've done that a bit with cigarettes, with alcohol, and then last year with plant-based, and yeah, it is amazing.
Amazing.
It's interesting. My grandparents were cattle farmers, just like actually Dr. Neil Barnard's as well. So I watched my grandparents, go through that business, and then the diet that a lot of times just goes with that business as well. And they died of things that now I always wonder if it was presentable. Heart disease and stroke, and then more heart disease, and complications from putting stents in. And it always makes me wonder, if they had had other options. I don't know.
No. I mean, but we didn't know back then. Yeah. But now we do. And we've known since Ornish's first randomized controlled trial in 1990, July 21st, 1990. So for decades, we've known this. Yet in the States, hundreds of thousands of Americans continue to die needlessly from this preventable, arrestable, reversible condition.
Right. And even when you're in the hospital for those diseases, they're feeding you the food.
Unbelievable.
I can't get you started about hospital food.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I was just scripting a video on hospital food, and actually most of the research on there is from the NHS. Really? And it's not just the patients, but the staff too are living, out of the vending machines, right? And actually, they used to sell cigarettes in the gift stores of hospitals, yet the medical profession actually led the charge to eliminate cigarettes out of hospitals. And actually the first kind of occupational setting that eliminated smoking was the hospitals. And so it would be nice to see them take that same kind of initiative and get the junk out of the hospital. So for example, in California, you're not allowed to sell soda in vending machines in public schools. Yet you go to the pediatric hospital, and you can get all the soda you want. In fact, they may have McDonald's or Krispy Kreme right in the actual hospital.
Wow.
And it's just like, what message are we sending when the bacon and eggs, just had your chest cracked open, and that's what you get the next morning? I mean, it's the message we're sending.
So
people,
that'll be one of your projects in the future, or you're constantly making videos about
right.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you saw your grandma go through that, and that inspired you. You weren't a doctor yet.
Well, no. Oh my God. Right. So 9 years old. And in fact, back then, it didn't even occur to me. Right? Because for me, for the little kid, it was like, oh yeah, that's what happens. You get sick, you go to the doctor, you get better. Right? Little did we know that was this just near miraculous event back then, where we didn't even think heart disease was reversible, period. And it actually wasn't until Ornish was able to show with some called the quantitative angiography, where you actually inject a dye, actually see what's happening inside the arteries. All Pritikin had were clinical reversals, meaning someone can't walk, someone can't, chest pain or calf pain, and then all of a sudden start eating healthy and they feel so much better. And the skeptics are like, well, yeah, it was like placebo effect or whatever. Right. Until we can actually see what was happening inside the artery. So that's what Ornish added, actually being able to prove it there in black and white, see these angiography pictures of the arteries opening back up without the surgery, without the drugs, as if you just put a stent in there, but it was like a stent made out of broccoli. That's what opened that thing up.
And yet you could walk around and ask the average American today how they could save their grandma or their dad from heart disease, and they would not believe a plant-based diet.
They would just say, well, it's in my family. Well, yeah, you know what else is in your family? A lousy diet. That's what falls in. But so for most these chronic lifestyle diseases, about 80%, are completely preventable, arrestable, reversible. These are diseases no one has to die from. So that's most of what comes into a GP's office is diseases that could be reversed if the GP had the knowledge and could convey that to the patients in a way that would convince them to eat healthier.
But what they usually do is write a script, right? And then they put you on a medication.
Right. Which treats the symptoms, right? So, the symptom of having high blood pressures, that's a symptom of having diabetes. So you can control the symptoms. So high blood pressure, that's a symptom of disease, stiffened, crippled arteries. And so, yeah, you can artificially bring the blood pressure down. And look, if you refuse to improve your diet and lifestyle, well then, yeah, having lower blood pressure reduces your risk of stroke and kidney failure, etc. But you're going to have that disease for the rest of your life. That's why you have to take those drugs every day for the rest of your life. If you actually want to treat the cause, not only can you get rid of the disease, period, but actually works better, right, than just trying to deal with the symptoms. But of course, where's the money in that?
So is that ignorance of the doctors, or is there a financial incentive, or sometimes it's hard to tell?
It's the system. The system is just not set up to reward healthy behaviors. Doctors in the States aren't reimbursed for counseling patients on eating a healthier diet. Right. And here, if you have 10 minutes with a patient, yeah, you can write a script, but can you really, talk to them about, what's in their cupboards at home? The system, and the same thing was like, why do we sell junk food? Why do we sell junk food? It's not like the CEO of Coca-Cola is sitting around thinking, how can I add to the childhood obesity epidemic? They're thinking, how can I satisfy my stockholders in the quarterly, and how do you do that? Dirt cheap ingredients, right, which is subsidized by taxpayers, sell for a couple bucks a bottle. It's like pure profit. Whereas produce, right, the healthiest foods, goes bad. It spoils. It's like the worst thing to sell, right? It's not a branded product. Even a broccoli grower is not going to put an ad on TV for broccoli because you just buy your competitor's broccoli. Like, there's just, the whole system is set up. You want a snack cake that sits on the shelves for a few weeks. Now that's how you make money. Yeah. And so it's not like there's this like conspiracy to make people sick. It's just there's a conspiracy to make people money. The system is to make people money, and unfortunately, what's most profitable happens to be what's least healthy.
Yeah.
And same thing in the medical field. All right. I mean, the most profitable thing as a primary care physician is what's called a blood pressure check. It's actually the most common primary care appointment is has high blood pressure, on blood pressure medications. You come in, check your blood pressure, we tweak your meds, right? Simplest thing. Doctor can do it in their sleep, right? Easily billable, right? The drug company's happy, everybody's happy, right? I mean, it just makes money for everybody.
It's a big profit margin. The insurance company reimburses it.
Everybody. I mean, it's like but and so to come and say, well, no, wait a second. You don't have to be on these medications because you can get rid of the disease, dramatically decrease your, risk of these endpoints. But it just, there's no hooks there's no profit motive driving that end. And so all we have is the science. All we have is the information, be able to inform people. And it's just going up against these, really powerful industries.
Right, but people are listening because they're reading your books and you see people making changes.
Yeah,
it's just
amazing.
It's just going against a system that blocks it.
Right, but I mean, that's what keeps me going is how many people who, if they knew it, would change. I mean, there are some people, a lot of people, it takes a lot of different, like the 10th time they hear about something, they start looking into it. But there are people who once they know, the next day, that's it. They're done, right? And how many people are there out there? And they just haven't heard, right? I mean, until everyone, that's when I retire. When I retire, it's not when everyone's eating healthy. Everybody's just informed, right, of the risks and benefits. They know, and then they make their own decision. Look, make whatever decision you want. But the fact that, the food industry is trying to confuse people, right? Intentionally trying to muddy the waters, and you get all these conflicting messages. That's what I can't stand. I'm like, once you know the science, then make up your own mind.
So the food companies are playing a little fun and games with the this and the that, and the bacon is good, and the diet foods that have the sugar in it. So you're coming up against that. All right, let's talk about the movie Game Changers.
Yeah.
You were scientific advisor to that.
Amazing.
I'm guessing that is an attempt to put out some ideas and messages in visual form to kind of counteract everything that's happening from the food company.
Tell me you've seen the movie.
I saw it. I saw a screener this week.
Okay.
Yeah, because James Wilkes was going to be here. And so, yeah, I saw the movie.
As far as I'm concerned, it is the single best piece of film ever put out by the plant-based movement. I mean, so basically, there's lots of resources
More so than
out
What
there.
the Health and Cowspiracy.
That all has the information, or Forks Over Knives, it has the information, it has the stories, the amazing life-changing stories. But what was lacking was that polished Hollywood production value, right? Take that amazing, all the science, the amazing stories, and then, put it in like and have enough money to really make a real documentary of it. I mean, not to put any of those others down, but people love those documentaries, not because they're great documentaries, but because of the information. But imagine if you had the information plus a really slick, well-produced, it's like the best of both worlds.
All right, so you're dealing with someone's kind of base level of brain, so they can just see the pictures and say, okay, I'm going to go to this.
It's gorgeous.
And so how were you involved as scientific advisor?
Yeah. Well, so I originally, I was just called to be part of the film. I mean, to just be interviewed for the film. And I remember being with, James Wilkes, who's like in some little like seedy hotel with him, like the little camcorder on a tripod somewhere. And there was like highway noise outside, whatever, but we were trying to get something. This is when he was just like shoestring budget, blah, blah, blah.
Years and years ago.
Years and years ago. So, we did a couple of hours, and then he comes back to me, I haven't heard from him in a while, comes back, he says, now we finally got some funding for the thing. We need to reshoot all the footage. I feel bad that we went to it, but but I really want to get you in the film, right? Okay. So we go back, we do the whole thing again, right? Hours of, okay, but we get it all down. Okay. Then, I know it's like another year goes by. Then it comes, okay, now we really have money. Then we got these fancy high-def cameras. We got,
James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, okay. So we did it again. We do the whole other thing, a whole nother afternoon of film, and go through with the entire crew now and all the lighting, and then I get cut completely from the film. No, but I am 100% in favor. I mean, I wouldn't replace a frame of that movie with me or anybody else. I mean, it was just done perfectly. But
I would have rather seen you in there.
But the role that I was able to play is just to go through and make sure all the science is set.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that was very important to me because what so often happens is if there's one little tidbit of the movie that is in the slightest bit misleading, they'll take that and baby out with the bathwater. I mean, that's all they need is one thing to attack. And so my constant refrain was, we want to take, so if you have like 5 statistic, for example, on how much water does a pound of beef make to make. And you could get like the USDA number, you could get like the environmental Greenpeace number, or, the industry has their way skewed in the other direction. What statistics should we take? Well, we take the industry. We go bend over backwards to take the most conservative possible statistics, because then we are just untouchable, right? The science is so strong. I mean, by taking the weaker statistic or the biased statistic, you're almost saying like, yeah, the evidence is so weak, we have to exaggerate. No, it's so strong, we can under-exaggerate. We can go the opposite direction and still just have this overwhelming. So, I mean, that was my constant push. Let's just absolutely use the most conservative, and just trying to keep it, and everything cited to the teeth. I mean, that was just super important to me, because I knew how, as the movie evolved, I knew what an important tool it was going to be, and I did not want it to be dismissed over some, some carelessness.
Okay. Have you been hanging out with James Cameron?
Oh my God, no! But I've talked to Susie, his wife,
and they're really big into plant-based movement.
Oh, super sweet folks. Yeah.
And it's
really from a more of an environmental standpoint. I'm seeing that a lot on college campuses these days.
Okay.
Is people are telling me they're going for the environment. Like that's totally new to me.
Very plant-based for the environment. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Plant-based for the environment.
Yeah. Look, I saw the movie. It was very beautiful.
Yeah.
The only problem I had is I felt that sometimes they were rolling out these beautiful athletes and showing them on screen when I didn't think they necessarily represented the top athletes in the world. That's what I didn't. So there's a strong man on there, but he's not one of the world's strongest men. And there were some Olympic athletes on there, but they weren't the top athletes. And so for me, I was like, okay, you can find some correlation, but I don't see the causation. That's what I didn't like. And I thought some of the science stuff was a little gimmicky, and the erection stuff, I thought that was a little gimmicky.
Oh my God, that was awesome. That was totally my
Michael.
idea. That was my idea to do that.
That makes sense.
Oh my God, that was brilliant.
Sense.
Okay. So the all you need to do, I mean, the current culture as now is you need meat for protein. How could you possibly build muscle without? So to counter the culture, all you need is a single example of one person anywhere building any amount of muscle, and then you can't build muscle without meat. Is right. I mean, that's what you need to. We are so far on one end.
I guess so.
All you have to do is like, wait a second. Can you have any endurance? Can you have any strength? That's all we need to do. And I think it showed it beautifully.
Appeal to the lowest common denominator.
But that's have you been out on the streets?
Yeah, maybe
are these people in life? I mean,
I live in London. That's my problem.
I mean, no, but look, I talk to people on flights all the time. I'm stuck on a 7-hour flight. And I strike up a conversation. It's like people are clueless. I mean, just these real. They don't know anything about nutrition, and that's the way the industry likes it. Wants people confused, so they throw up their hands and eat whatever's put in front of them. That's the way the system is set up. So, I mean, that's all we need. That's all this movie had to show. You could do it. Right? It is possible to not drop over dead by not eating these foods. And then, the erection study, which I will take full credit for.
My gosh.
No, it's actually being done now in a real setting.
And
it didn't purport to that there's but just to show how dramatic one meal. Right, that's wild. Come on, and it shows to the arterial function. Right, it's not that they're clearing out their plaque, but just shows your arteries function
and it plays
better.
to the lowest common denominator of someone's manhood.
Come
on, Michael, you're better than that.
What do men care about? Right? No, especially young men. Look, when I go speak at a high school, right? Yeah. Breast cancer is going to go over their head. I'm going to talk about stroke, dying of a heart disease. That's what grandparents like. So I talk about athletic performance. I talk about acne. I talk about, about things talk about erections. That's what young men care about.
Okay.
Right?
All right. I get it.
All right.
I get it. Look, What you got to do it. I get it. You know, that's fine. The blood and the plasma's cloudy. I was just like, my scientific mind was like, all right, one looks cloudy, doesn't look cloudy.
Your blood is a milkshake after eating
Where's
a
the science,
cheeseburger.
though? I'm looking at it, so I got these unscientific guys that say it looks cloudy. I mean, does that?
But
mean...
it is. There's actually something called lactescence.
Okay.
And so that's the cloudiness or the milkiness of your serum.
Okay.
That's what happens after you eat a meal.
Does
That's
that
how much
mean-
fat is in your. And the consequences of that fat are the insulin resistance and arterial crippling and all these downturn. So we're just trying. But otherwise, it's numbers on a screen. It's numbers in a graph. Right? How can we take numbers in a graph and actually make some kind of visual impact of it? That was
I get it. But I would
and
say
you can do it yourself.
But there were no
spin down your blood after a cheeseburger,
maybe
and you're
I
like,
will, and I'll
what?
look at it. Yeah, I mean, okay, whatever. All right, but also, I mean, there weren't that many top athletes in there. There's not the top of their games. There were just a few select choices.
Maybe
You took a runner that looked good.
Maybe
God
they
bless her.
should
You look a
try-
strong man who's
maybe
not at the top
they
of the
should
strongman game.
Maybe these athletes.
Maybe. But you know what I'm
seeing
saying.
this would.
You took one mixed martial arts fight between a vegan and a meat eater, and he happened to lose.
Maybe so all we need to do, open up their mind and have people try it. And then, so why are people eating the way they are? They're eating the way they are because they were taught this is what you eat to be strong. This is what you eat to be fast. This is what you eat for endurance, right?
Yeah.
And so just to open their mind, say, wait a second, you can eat this, and still be at the top of your game. Well, maybe I'll give it a try. And so,
in that sense, cool.
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you for explaining it to me because I was having a few issues, and I respect you a lot, and I respect what you guys are doing. And look, I went plant-based for a year. I ran a goddamn Ironman triathlon plant-based. So like maybe you're preaching to the choir a little bit, and I was looking for something else. So I get why you're doing it. A lot of great minds, and it's good to have that question in people's minds. So I'll give you that. I'll give you the pass. I know it's going to blow up on Netflix. I know it's already blowing up on iTunes.
It's going to go crazy.
So congrats. I would have rather seen you in that movie. Though.
Oh my God. Well,
those other
maybe I'll
goofball
be in
doctors
some
they wheeled out.
DVD extra or something. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, that'd be good. Can I tell you about my experience on plant-based last year? And then I want to get into the book a little bit more.
Okay, yeah.
So last year, I had someone sitting in that leather chair. His name was John Joseph. He's the lead singer of the hardcore punk band, the Cro-Mags. Been plant-based for 30-some years.
Amazing.
Because he was a Hare Krishna monk back in the day. And he's also done 10 of these Ironman races, which are these really long distance,
Insane.
12, 13-hour races where you swim and you bike and you run. And so he got in the chair and he was looking at me funny and he said, Brian, I want to challenge you to do a half Ironman. You got 90 days to train. And I was like, you must be crazy because I had never done endurance training. I mean, I was in okay shape, but I had never done long distance swim or run or anything. And I said, okay, maybe. And then he said, but you're doing it on a plant-based diet. And I was like, what are you doing, John? There's a scene in the movie where he walks in my Airbnb in New York and I'm cooking eggs and bacon and he throws it in the trash and he takes me across the street and I'm drinking smoothies. And he said, Brian, you're going to not get injured. You're going to be a better performance. And I'm 47 years old at the same time. And I didn't believe him, but I like John a lot. And, he really knows his science. He has a great book called Meat is for Pussies, which again, really kind of addressed this whole, I got to eat meat as men. Yeah. And I appreciated him writing that book and getting in trouble for the title and all that stuff. Although apparently the publisher was their idea. Anyways, so I started eating plants. I told my wife, she freaked out. She's originally from Bulgaria where, she didn't know anything about plant-based diets. Sure. But she adopted and adapted, and all of a sudden she's making black bean quinoa nachos with vegan cheese, and we're rocking and rolling. And I first wasn't eating enough, so I was a little bit calorie deficit. Yeah. But once I figured that out, I had a great experience. I ran the race, and I felt so good that I kept it up for the whole year. So a year I went plant-based. And towards the end of the year, I just asked myself this, Michael. I said, am I doing this because I'm dogmatic or am I doing this because this feels like the best nutrition? And I have a history of doing things because I'm dogmatic or doing things until they kill me. Drinking, drugs, being a banker. So it's true. So I thought, why am I doing this? And I introduced some fish back into my diet and some grass-fed beef. And I just thought, you know what? I just don't know if it's the right nutrition source for me. Now, I am not doing a lot of that. I still eat a lot of plants, and I'm not eating cheeseburgers all the time. Great. But for me, I feel good with this diet. And I've had a lot of people that have been vegan here for 5 years that are actually now starting to experiment with some animal protein. So what do you think about that?
Well, it sounds like you're eating better than 99.9% of people out there, right? So that's fantastic.
You're probably right.
If there was one thing, if you were going to obsessively commit to one thing in your life, rather than alcoholism. I mean, a healthy diet. The number one cause of
I have
death.
a healthy diet. I'm just not 100% plant-based.
Right. Okay. But you could eat a healthier diet, right? And we could all eat a healthier diet, right? Every time, it's a zero-sum game. Every time we put something in our mouth, there's an opportunity cost. There's a lost opportunity to put something even healthier in our mouth. And this goes for anything, right? You eat a banana, you just had a lost opportunity to eat blueberries, which are healthier than a banana, right? So you just put one thing on oatmeal or another thing on your oatmeal.
Right.
And so that's like, when you say is X food healthy or not? Is grass-fed beef healthy? Compared to what? Compared to bacon? Absolutely, right? Compared to chickpeas? Nah, that'd be hard, right? But so everything we eat we should just all try to nudge everything up. And if eating a little bit of animal protein is going to keep you eating all the other wonderful food in your diet, right? I mean, if just that psychologically, right, saying, well, I don't want to be one of them, right? And
it's not necessarily that.
Or look, I don't want to worry about holidays or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If that on a day-to-day basis keeps you, stuffing your face with all those healthy whole plant foods, it's not what you eat today or tomorrow or birthdays, holidays, special occasions. It's what you eat day for like decades from now. What are you going to be in decades? So whatever makes it sustainable for you is the healthiest diet. Okay. So if that includes beef, and if otherwise you would just forget about it, right? So people who go all in, these people do the cold tofu kind of thing and all in, and they're like, wow, I feel so good about myself. But then 6 months later, they're back eating cheeseburgers. Well, then maybe if they would have went slower and figured out how to make it work within their lives, make it convenient, and then maybe they would have been doing this. So the 6 months aren't going to help them in the long run, right? So it's really about how knowing your psychology and what's going to keep me in this for the long run, eating as many whole plant foods as possible. And that's really the crux. It's how many whole plant foods are you eating? That if there's one question. And so it's not how much meat are you eating?
Right.
How many whole plant foods? Now, if you eat meat, you're kind of displacing, right? There's a certain number of calories and satiety that goes along with that. And so you may end up at the end of the day eating less whole. But in terms of health, it's how many whole plant foods you're eating, full stop. And the primary reason these other foods aren't good is because they may undercut your whole plant food consumption, in addition to whatever else they have bad in them. So yes, some have saturated fat or trans fats or too much sodium or cholesterol, but part of the reason that they're unhealthful comparatively is because it's that bite for bite. It's that substituting one for another. And so if you're going to eat meat, make it the best meat. Right? You're going to eat cheese, make it the expensive, really high-end cheese. It's people who are eating Velveeta and American cheese and they're just they don't even taste it. They're like watching TV, eating Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. It's like you're not even enjoying, you're hurting yourself. If you're going to hurt yourself, right? Then you might as well, right, have the best scotch or whatever, right? Then, but that's like the worst of both worlds. It's like you're not even deriving any pleasure from it, right? So look, if you're gonna eat chocolate, eat some really good chocolate. And then it's gonna be expensive, and so you're not gonna get a lot of it, and it's gonna be a special occasion, and it's gonna be, and your body can bounce back from intermittent insults. It's kind of the day-to-day stuff that really builds up.
Okay. Now, if I go out and shoot an elk and eat some wild elk, and that's a whole nother thing that people get mad at me about, but are you definitively saying that is going to hurt me, having that meat, as opposed to having a whole food?
That's absolutely the healthiest. So elk and moose, 2% fat by weight. 2% fat. When you go to the store and it says extra lean, that's like 28% fat. That's the extra lean, right? Okay. 2%. So that's actually what chicken used to be in 1896. 2%. Now it's 23%, 10 times more fat. But yeah. So wild caught game without lead ammunition. That's critically important. If you shoot that elk with lead ammunition, it's a bad thing. But so copper jacketed, no lead. But yeah, venison. And so there's actually experiments done. Primarily there's a research team in Australia where they did compared eating wild meat, which is kangaroo there, but that's like their venison.
Right.
Compared to conventional store-bought meat, it's a significantly lower bump in postprandial inflammation after eating, significantly less inflammation in their blood within 4 hours after eating the kangaroo meat compared to conventionally bought meat. Now, you could argue, why eat anything pro-inflammatory at all? If you instead ate plant foods, you actually would have an anti-inflammatory reaction. Okay, fine. But if you're going to eat meat, that's absolutely the least harmful meat is the wild-caught meat.
Okay, fair enough. I just am just not sure. I mean, look, I trust you as a doctor. You know what you're talking about. But also, in the past, doctors have told us to smoke Lucky Strikes, to drink skim milk.
No.
So I'm just trying to listen to my body, and I'm trying to make a decision.
Don't trust me. No. We trust the science.
Okay.
Right. I mean, right. And so.
But you're 100% certain in your mind.
No. Well, so there's studies been done. So, I talk about in the introduction to How Not to Die.
Yeah.
This study. That's the question. Well, like, how much is too much? Right. That's an unanswered research question. We don't know. There certainly is an amount that it's like there's no science in the world that says being a social smoker, picking up a few cigarettes at a party once or twice a year is gonna hurt you. I mean, there's no science that shows those social smokers have any higher disease rates than people who don't smoke at all, right? Now we can show smoking half pack a day, absolutely, right? Devastating, right? But there's some level at which your body should be able to just repair any DNA damage and, get rid of all that tar. And so it's like, okay, well, what is that level? And so I'm always interested in looking for those particular studies. Probably the best study to come to that was the study looking at Buddhist monks in Far East. Where it was nice about these studies is that they live there all time and they get fed the same food every single day, and they have no access to junk food or external food, so they have highly controlled diets.
And this is super important because a lot of these studies out there, they ask people what they're eating. They don't even know what they're eating.
Right, or they say, I'm going to put you on this diet, put you on this diet, and there's no, and then if there's no difference, well, did you actually follow the diet? Compliance, critically important. Even if you provide food, compliance can be miserable in dietary studies. Right. There's these biomarkers you actually tell. I was just scripting a video looking at whole grains, and there's something called alkyl resorcinol, which is something found in the bran layer and basically nowhere else in the food supply. So you can measure the blood supply and see if people are actually eating it. And so they gave people whole grains to replace these with, and people just took them, throw them out. Because, so there's like half of the people, they didn't comply at all. And so when the result, so all that money, all those resources, that entire, all completely useless because they didn't actually comply with the dietary intervention. Okay, so that's why, these kind of studies are nice. Now, this wasn't a randomized study, but there were these two monasteries, and one was completely plant-based, and the other one had meat. If I remember correctly, it was like, for men, it was like one serving every 2 days, and for women, it was like one serving every 5 days, or something like that. So not meat every day, neither group ate, but they seemed to differ. Their diets seemed to differ, and they lived there decades. It's really nice kind of natural experiment that's set up. And so if you would have came to me and asked, predict what the study results will be, and someone was eating meat, one serving of meat every 3 days, I'm like, there's not going to be any difference. If you would have asked me, I would have predicted that you're not going to see any kind of end maybe some risk factor stuff, but you're not going to see actual, endpoints like, disease risk.
Okay.
With that time, I bet your body can bounce back from that.
Before you saw the movie Game Changers? Because you're eating one burrito in Game Changers and you got your bloods messed up and you can't get an erection.
So now, all right.
But you didn't think necessarily.
I was skeptical that they would be able to see.
Right.
And they found remarkable difference. I forget I think it was like twice the diabetes rates in people eating just a few servings a week. That was really surprising. And so, so that may be too much, but is one serving a week bad? We just don't know. The data isn't that granular to really get down there. And ideally, we'd actually have randomized data over long term to actually put it to the test and prove it. So all we really have is the best available balance of evidence, right? Does that mean it's necessarily good evidence? No. It's just, this is the best evidence we have so far. And if it weren't so important, then who cares, right? But when it's literally the number one cause, so dietary risk, according to Global Burden Disease Study, in the UK, the number one killer of Brits is their diet. Smoking's now number 2. And think of all the resources, the regulations that go into getting people to quit smoking, right? No, but that's killer number 2. Why isn't that same amount of resources being poured into getting people to improve their diet? And there is some, certainly sodium levels have dropped. Right. And the best population level experiment in the world was, this public-private partnership with the UK government, went to the restaurant industry, dropped sodium levels across the board in a playing field. And you saw, you saw a dramatic drop in stroke rates, improvements in blood pressure. Really, it's a success story, what's being done here. But, I mean, nothing compared to what really could be done. So number one killer is the British diet. Just like number one killer in America is standard American
But it's such a personal thing that if the government starts to regulate that, it's a different thing if you look at cigarettes, because most people would admit that a cigarette is probably harmful to you. Now,
but not before.
Right.
And the science was clear at the time when people were saying, smoking in moderation is fine.
Right.
When that's not what the science showed. And we were in a similar situation here, where the science is over here, but the public proclamations are far from it.
Well, and tobacco lobbies didn't help.
And just like the food industry lobbies aren't helping now.
So there should be more being done to educate the public, since it's the biggest killer right now.
Right. But I like what the British government did is they didn't leave it up to the public. Is they're just going to decrease the sodium levels. And look, you can still salt your nuggets all you want, but the fact that chicken nuggets have like half the sodium here that they do in the United States is because Burger King was dropping their sodium too. So no one can kind of out-salt their competitors. They brought the population level sodium levels down, stroke rates came down, and look, you want to pour the whole salt shaker on it? That's up to you. It's easier to add salt to food than to remove salt from food, right? Yeah. So then that puts the power in the consumer. So it seems a little big brothery that they're getting all the restaurant chains to decrease their salt, but no, that's in fact empowering consumers to determine the levels of salt that they want to do. They can always add more. They can't take out less.
Yeah. Biggest takeaways from the latest book, How Not to Diet. What were some of the things that you learned that surprised you that you're passing on? You know?
Oh my God. I mean, so I thought I would do just kind of a decent review of all the latest and come out with the same kind of, eat less, hit the gym kind of advice, but it would just be all, solidly based on science. But I had no idea that there's these entire fields I was unaware of. For example, chronobiology, the field of the effects of your circadian rhythms on biological processes. I didn't know anything about that. I mean, there's chemotherapy data where if you give chemotherapy at a different time of day, you can get better efficacy, less side effects just by what time of the day. I'd heard about some of that, but you can take that throughout lifestyle. Depends when you exercise, depends when you eat, meal timing. I mean, you eat the exact same number of calories at breakfast. There are less fattening than the exact same calories at dinner. A snack at night, more fattening than a snack, 8 hours later. Crazy things like that, where this whole concept that a calorie is a calorie just got totally blown out of the water. Okay. Right? It's not just what you eat, but what you absorb, and your microbiome, affects what you eat and how many calories you actually hold on to versus flush down the. There was much more at play. And we have much more leverage than I had imagined before. So it's not just, cut out junk food and, on down. There's all these kind of little kind of tweaks and hacks and techniques you can do for regardless of what you eat, where you can accelerate fat burning. So that was that's the second half of the book, actually. So the first half of the book, I just go through the 17 ingredients, what I call them, of a optimal weight loss diet. I want to start from the ground up. It's like
what are some of those?
So it's like I didn't want the book to be out of date before it even came out. So instead of playing whack-a-mole and just talking about the current diet, so I was like, here's the template you can compare any future diet to. So, for example, high fiber. So if there was one piece of advice, increasing fiber intake, probably the number one piece of advice, increasing fiber-rich foods, because it works from a whole variety of mechanisms, primarily feeding your good gut flora, which releases these short-chain fatty acids, get absorbed into our system, make it up into our brain, actually affect our appetite center. So eating beans at night actually decreases your food consumption at lunch the next day when by the time your gut bacteria are eating that same bean burrito, they're releasing these short chain fatty acids, actually affect your appetite. You eat 100 calories less at the next day, 11 hours later, had you eaten something else. For dinner. Amazing studies like that. High in fiber-rich foods is one of the 17. high in water-rich foods. So they did the satiety index where they took dozens of common foods, had people eat a certain number of calories, and just say how full do you feel over the next few hours. And you can do an index and compare it to white bread, for example, eating 100 calories of white bread, 100 calories of anything else, and they found that the most important component was not protein content or fiber content, but water content. How much the water content of the food primarily indicated how much satiety in terms of fullness.
Okay.
So vegetables, so water-rich vegetables. So there's a variety of vegetables that are 95% water by weight. 95% water.
Which you would think, like, why would I eat it?
So, I mean, right. So something like, Napa cabbage or bean sprouts or iceberg lettuce, cucumbers, zucchini, 95. So a big bowl of water-rich vegetables is basically a big bowl of water, right? I mean, there's just nothing. And so you could some foods are just impossible to overeat. They're so low in calorie density, so few calories per mouthful, per stomachful. You literally just couldn't fit them in. You'd have to eat wheelbarrows worth of food, right?
Okay.
Those
are good for you.
And so these are good for you, and that so you can practice what's called negative calorie preloading. So eating an apple, for example, before a meal. A large apple before a meal cuts down about 200 calories. You eat 300 calories less, so the apple contains 100 calories. Okay. But you eat 300 calories less, so the apple ends up being negative 200 calories. So you say, how many calories does an apple have? It depends on when you eat it. If you eat it right before a meal, it can effectively have negative 200 calories. That's just how the math plays out. And part of that is because water-rich and also air-rich. About 20% of apple by volume is air, and so I can bob for it on Halloween.
Right, and that affects your hunger levels.
And actually, right, because it's actually trapped, and so you have this mass in your stomach. Just remarkable stuff, right?
All right, so lots of these things and 17 different types of foods.
So 17, and so that basically you can just so I have actually a chart in the book where any particular food, any meal pattern, any new diet, you can just line it up against these 17, see which diet kind of ticks off most of the boxes. And then the second half of the book are the weight loss acceleration, regardless of what you eat. Hopefully people won't just skip to this section, but regardless of what you eat, there's ways you can eat that food. There are foods that act as fat blockers and starch blockers and metabolism boosters and all these appetite suppressants, proven in some cases in double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trials, like simple spices they can take, which can accelerate body fat loss. I mean, stuff that I had no idea about before coming into this. So I was super excited. In fact, even came across something which no one has ever I actually came up with a novel weight loss technique that has never been put to the test, obviously, because apparently no one ever thought about it before. Actually, I came across it in the Russian cosmonaut research.
Really?
I mean, which just shows that if you do this broad enough search, you can try to piece together disparate things from all over the place.
You gonna tell us what it is, or we have to buy the book?
Well, no, I can tell you, but it's so it's
going into 0G. That's quitting. That's cheating.
It's sleeping in mild Trendelenburg, which is with your head down tilt by 6 degrees. So you put like 4 bricks under the foot post of your bed. Okay. You actually sleep at basically what that does is all this fluid rushes to your chest from your limbs. And that's actually how you simulate 0G is you train astronauts like that. Okay. Anyway, fascinating story. And so what that does is it simulates exercise, basically. There's your heart releases a hormone that realizes it has so much more fluid in its heart, it thinks you're running a marathon or something. And that accelerates fat loss. That gets your fat loss burning and peaks within the next 4 hours. And you should not do it if you have glaucoma. You should not do it if you have heart failure. You should not. There's a couple of things. There's a couple caveats of people that may want to give it a try, and it give you what's called a space headache. That's technically what they call it. Okay. It makes your face a little puffy or something, but
yes,
it should work.
All right, but this is all whole food plant-based stuff. You didn't find that eating pig sausage was a great thing.
I was open to it. And so so this book, I already did the if you want to be healthy, combat chronic disease book. That's done as far as I'm concerned. This was really like, if it works, I'm going to include it. Now, to a point. So, for example, smoking. helps you lose weight because of nicotine.
Right.
Thankfully, we can actually get nicotine without smoking by eating the vegetables from the same nightshade kingdom. So eating green peppers, for example, get enough nicotine in our body that actually affects our nicotine receptors and may be able to get weight loss through the same nicotine pathway. But I don't have a chapter on which brand is the best cigarette to smoke or the best way to get tuberculosis or cancer or AIDS or chemotherapy. Lots of ways to lose weight. The whole point is not to fit into a skinnier casket, right? Or to lighten the load for your pallbearers. The point is you want healthy, long, sustainable. But I definitely included stuff that, I say, look, this isn't the best for your health for these reasons. But in terms of weight loss, that's what you came here for the book.
Okay.
This is what you should do.
But you didn't mention elk meat or kangaroo meat or anything. There's no animal products mentioned.
So one of the criteria is low in meat.
Okay, low in meat.
Low in meat.
Okay.
So a diet low in meat is one of the criteria. You should look at any kind of dietary pattern in terms of weight loss efficacy. And I just go through all the literature where, these randomized studies where you can, and part of it is because of the calorie density, lack of fiber, and there's reasons why there are better choices for meat for weight loss.
Okay, but you don't say no meat, you say low in meat, but you let them understand that the lowest meat is no meat.
So I talk about the research, and just present the research and let people up there. And I talk about the healthier meat. So I talk about like the venison. Like if you're gonna eat meat, eat this kind of meat. Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's good. There's a lot of fad diets going on right now, and I know you didn't want to try to whack them all in each one of the diets.
Always.
Just wanted to ask you just if you thought about approaching a few of the diets. One, which I know you've been asked about before, but I have to ask you, is the carnivore diet. Dr. Jordan Peterson's on it, and I know him and his daughter feel a lot better. I think there's reasons for that. And some people swear by it. What do you think of what's happening there with the carnivore diet?
So I just swear at it. That was my.
But why are they seeing results?
If it's like people who go gluten-free feel better. So if you had a wheat allergy, and all of a sudden you go gluten-free and you feel better, it wasn't the gluten, it was because you had a wheat allergy. Or, one of the reasons people feel bad, about 1 in 200 people who stop eating meat have these negative consequences, and they have a soy allergy. They never knew that. It's about 1 in 200, 250 people have a soybean allergy. You don't even know it because who eats a soybean unless all of a sudden you start eating a veggie burger or something, but all of a sudden they stop eating meat and they feel terrible. Oh, you had an undiagnosed soy allergy. Get rid of the soybeans all of a sudden, then you can, get the full benefits of not eating meat. But it wasn't the lack of meat that did it. And so if you have a variety of food intolerances, so you cut down. So if instead of a carnivore diet, you had a sweet potato diet where all you did was eat sweet potatoes, presumably you'd feel just as good because you're cutting out whatever bad thing that was undercutting your health before. It's basically 3 things that no one's allergic to: sweet potatoes, tapioca, and water. And so when you do these elimination diets, to find these people with irritable bowel syndrome and trying to find out what exactly you're doing it, put people on water, tapioca, and sweet potatoes, and then slowly add back fruit, add back nuts, add back, grains, and then you find out what all of a sudden does it. So, presumably, by eating meat, you're cutting out swaths of potential allergens and, things that people...
And that's why they feel better, but in your mind, that's not sustainable in the long run.
Oh my God! You could get it's a diet you could get scurvy off of. Now that's it.
Okay, so you put a little lime juice in there, and you can still keep rocking.
A zero fiber diet. Yeah, no. Look, it's the antithesis of what one would expect for a healthy diet.
Right.
It's just. It goes against every. There's this
but
consensus.
Some people are living it.
Oh my God! Some people are. If your counter is, well, some people are doing it, that basically you can defend anything
right? You think long term they're just going to be dead.
Right. Of course. Right. So short term you can do all sorts of you see benefits from, immediately you clear out your glycogen stores, you get this nice diuresis, get this water loss, which helps people kind of stick to the diet, right? If there's something else in your diet that was but...
And who knows, maybe 10 years from now there'll be a study, we might be surprised.
Well, I'm open to surprises, but yeah, so
okay.
What are...
And what about the keto diet? I know you didn't want to whack moles, but did you look into that?
I did. Yeah, okay. So I have a whole chapter on the ketogenic diets. Okay. And it turns out when you switch to a ketogenic diet, your body fat loss actually slows down by about half. And the reason is because you start eating up your own protein and start losing lean mass and water weight. And then, of course, long-term. Now, we have these, the reason we have long-term ketogenic diet studies where we don't have long-term carnivore diet studies is because ketogenic diets are actually used as like a third-line treatment for pediatric epilepsy. Okay. So for intractable epilepsy among children who have these seizure disorders, for which drugs don't help, changing the biochemistry of the brain by putting them on ketogenic diets can actually be life-saving. But we have but we have studies. Let's see what happens when you have people on a ketogenic diet for 10 years and horrible things happen in terms of bone loss, in terms of kidney failure, in terms of nutrient deficiencies, and it's really
it's temporary.
Right.
Okay, I know Tim Ferriss went on it, and it helped with some of his Lyme disease symptoms. I know he finds himself really creative on it. I don't know if he's on it long term. Any of the diets that kind of came up that were on your radar that you wanted to address in the book?
Well, I'm on the U.S. News and World Report, a diet panel, an expert diet panel. And so every year we have to go through the dozens of all the new diets, and half of which, frankly, I didn't even know of until I have to do research on them because I didn't even heard of them.
Right. Okay.
And of course, there's no research on them, but I didn't even know what constitutes their diet. So I have to go back and see. And then you can use some of these criteria to be like, well, wait a second, is it what would we expect to happen if we actually were to put it to the test? But the fact that we have the data, we have enough data right now, not another experiment need run, right? One diet, only one diet, ever proven, reverse heart disease, majority of patients. That should be the starting point as far as I'm concerned. Unless proven otherwise, unless it turns out that, oh, no, it does something bad, or, let's find out.
Yeah. Alzheimer's, we were going to talk about that. Obviously, pretty devastating disease for everyone involved, the families and all of that stuff. What are we learning about this?
Second leading cause of death in the UK, second leading cause of death, Alzheimer's. Not the second leading cause of premature death, but second leading cause of death across the board right now, Alzheimer's. Because I was looking for the talk today, I was given and I was like, well, what are the top killers here? Now, in terms of most death and disability.
Die from it?
It is an invariably fatal disease.
Okay, because most people think...
It is a fatal disease.
So it doesn't just remove your memory and cognition.
It removes your life, right? And so it is a neurodegenerative disease, and it's just that your memory centers are hit first, but it eventually degenerates the rest of your disease until you can't swallow anymore, and you die in your own secretions, you can't breathe anymore. So not only do you lose your memories, and to a point, if you live this long, where you no longer recognize yourself or your loved ones in the mirror, millions. So in the States, 4 million Americans currently affected, right? With an aging population, it's just going to get worse. And not only do we have no good treatments, we have no treatments. The drugs that are out there now have zero impact on progression. They can impact symptoms. So some people get combatives, so we give them sedatives. But in terms of the progression of the disease, no drug has ever been shown to have any effect on progression. But controlling heart disease risk factors, so high blood pressure, high cholesterol, opening up the arteries in the brain, getting more blood flow up there is the only thing ever been proven to slow the progression of the disease. But again, not reverse it, right? It just gets worse slowly. And in advanced Alzheimer's, right, it's a real ethical question whether we actually want to prolong that state.
Yeah, good point.
So now, the only, the caveat it's important to realize is this is a clinical diagnosis. Right now, Alzheimer's is predominantly a clinical diagnosis, meaning there's no test, Alzheimer's test. And so if you've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, does that mean you're invariably going to die? Only if you actually have Alzheimer's. And some people being diagnosed with Alzheimer's actually have a type of dementia that can be treated, reversed, cured. Like if they have a normal pressure hydrocephalus, for example. My mother was diagnosed with normal pressure hydrocephalus. It's where normally you create this cerebrospinal fluid that cushions your brain, your spinal cord. And you make it and you absorb it, make it, absorb it. And if the outlet where you're absorbing it gets clogged up, the pressure builds up in your brain and you start getting demented. So my mom started getting demented. Her mom died of Alzheimer's. Oh, wow. And so, oh my God, here we go. So devastated the whole family, right? And so her doctor told her she had Alzheimer's. And so we were like preparing for the end, right? Who's going to take care of her? My brother was going to move down. And I mean, but I was not satisfied. And I took her down to New York City to who I thought was the best neurologist in the world. And I said, we're gonna get to the bottom of this. And it turns out my mom wasn't telling me some symptoms like urinary incontinence. And she was having a problem with her balance. Now, if I would have known that, those are the three symptoms. That's the triad. Okay. Urinary incontinence, gait instability, and dementia. That's normal pressure hydrocephalus. And all you do is you put a little shunt in there, and poof. And you know how you diagnose this is amazing. And I actually saw this happen in front of my eyes. What you do is you do a spinal tap. You draw out fluid, right? And you see what happens. And so here's my mom. She can hardly talk. So far gone, right? And this is a mom who double majored in chemistry and English. I mean, her brain, her intellect, she was a nurse. It was her whole life, book reading, right? And then all of a sudden reduced to not being able to walk, not being able to talk. They do the spinal tap, pull out this fluid, and all of a sudden my mom is back. Life into her eyes, talking normally, completely normal, until about 2 hours when the pressure starts building up, and then she drops down. And it's like flowers of Algernon, like reversed, right? All of a sudden you see her melt away, and she could feel it. She could realize what was happening. So you put a little shunt in, and poof, mom's better. All right, okay. So she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and was cured because she never had Alzheimer's. So you should never take an Alzheimer's diagnosis at face value. You want second opinions, you want third opinions, you want fourth opinions, because once you have it, there's not much you can do about it, right? Comfort measures. But are you sure you have it? Something like B12 deficiency, vitamin B12 deficiency can be cured with something you can get at any drugstore. A little B12 supplement can mimic Alzheimer's, right? You have to make sure that they actually have Alzheimer's. That's what we can do at this point. Although Dr. Dean Ornish, after conquering killer number 1, heart disease, then with a plant-based diet, moved to killer number 2, cancer, first person ever to show reversal of the progression of early stage cancer with a plant-based diet, now is doing a randomized controlled trial, plant-based diet for Alzheimer's. Right now, right at the UCSF, the trial is going on right now. Which is the first of its kind. First of its kind ever. It's currently ongoing. We have no idea the results. That will be interesting. As far as I predict, we're not going to show anything. I mean, once the nerves are dead, I think they're dead. I don't think they're coming back. But you don't know until you try. Okay, but you think still it can prevent. But preventing, absolutely. And so we have good data showing you can actually match the cerebral artery atherosclerosis, the amount of atherosclerosis, particularly in the little arteries going to the memory centers. You can match that on MRI to the progression of the disease, to the development of the disease. So absolutely. So for example, people eating plant-based diets is the original Adventist study, 2 to 3 times less likely to become demented later in life than those who eat meat. And we can actually correlate these changes to what's happening. So it's this clogging of arteries. It's not just in our heart. Atherosclerosis is a systemic disease. That's why the erections. That's why would someone with atherosclerosis, because all arteries of the body start getting clogged up. When you start clogging up the brain, it can not only set you up for a stroke, but it can clamp off blood flow to critical areas, which can lead to multi-infarct dementia or increased risk for Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. Okay. Hormones and hormone issues. Are we seeing other effects, and does that causing other diseases or not diseases, by the plant-based diet? I don't know. I keep hearing people talking about hormones and also some things with females as well, and menstrual cramps and other things. Is that new, or is that something you've been looking at for a while? So we have these great randomized crossover trials. In fact, Dr. Barnard, that would be a great. So he actually ran some of those critical studies where I take people with severe PMS and put them on a plant-based diet, and then their symptoms get better. But then you do what's called an ABA design, where then you switch them back to their original and if their symptoms come back, right? Then we can see if, maybe just by chance they happen to all get better that week, or just being enrolled in a study where people are looking at you, asking questions, maybe that could change. Okay, so then you put people back on the original diet and see if their symptoms come back. But what's ironic is that some of the women felt so much better on the plant-based diet. I mean, not only their cramps are better, but their bowel regularity and their energy in the morning, and they're just feeling so much better. They actually refuse to go back to their original diet, screwing up the study, right? It's like plant-based diets can work so well, it's hard to even study them because you actually have to throw that data point out. So that data point actually showed efficacy so much so you had to throw it out. So all you're left with at the end are just people who completed the study. And so you actually underestimate the effect because you're throwing out all the people who refuse to go back. He did the same thing with migraine studies, saw the same thing. Migraines got so much better, like, screw you, I'm not going back. I know I signed a thing, I said I'd go back. I'm not going back, are you crazy? And so it actually undercuts yeah, so it's funny.
Beyond Meat just IPO'd. I think it's got $1 billion valuation.
Crazy.
What do you think about all these meat substitutes? Is there something to be careful about there? Because you're big on whole foods.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So tell me.
Oh, these are great transition foods. I see these as stepping stone foods. So not everyone can go kale and quinoa, overnight. But so to have those same kind of tastes and textures from your childhood, I mean, that's great. And you can show, wait a second, wow, I don't have to eat this, it tastes great, right? Oh, and all of a sudden it opens up their mind. I just don't want people to stall there, right? Those are what I call yellow light foods, these processed plant foods. Better than, better than the original, but far from ideal. And so I want them to continue down that path, eating more and more whole, healthy plant foods in their diet. So yeah, better, but certainly not the way. In fact, some of these actually have higher sodium levels than the original. And so, yeah. So not ideal, but I'm so glad they're out there to help people start this transition towards a healthier diet.
Right, kind of like the movie Game Changers. You just want to introduce some ideas, try it.
Just bust some myths, right? And then just, okay. And look, you don't know how you yourself will feel until you give it a try. Right? Give it a few weeks. Just see what happens, right? Look, you could eat anything for 2 weeks. You could eat nothing for 2 weeks, right? People fast, right? Yeah, and so it's just like, look, try it as an experiment, right? And so that's how, when I had a private practice, it was, I would just be like, no one can think, I'm never going to have pepperoni pizza the rest of my life. Like, people can't think that way. They're like, forget it, right? But no. Give me 2 weeks. Give me 3 weeks, right? That's why, Neil has that 21-day Kickstart program, right? Hundreds of thousands of people, multiple languages, starts at the first of every month, completely free. You do it like a social media group, share tips, and you get, daily kind of affirmations. And the hope is that after those first few weeks, you're feeling so good that then you have that internal motivation to continue down that path. It's not some like doctor just wagging their finger at you. All of a sudden, wow, right? And even if you do go back, you always have that to go to. You can do it. You know how you felt when you did it. You can always go back there if you wanted to.
Are you surprised to see places like KFC and McDonald's and Burger King throwing in plant-based?
I see that as times they are changing. Can you imagine that? But it just shows that there's this tremendous market movement. People are tremendously interested, right? As our society gets sicker and sicker, to looking for some of these alternatives. And just shows that how plant-based is so powerful. But of course, what does the industry want to do with plant-based? Is they just want to make it their own flavor of junk food. They'd be happy to give you low-carb junk food, low-fat junk food, processed paleo junk food, ironically. Any kind of, right? We will give you any kind of flavor of junk. The only thing they can't profit off of is real food, and hopefully we'll all get there.
Right, so people need to be careful of that because the industries will take it and create that processed food.
And great.
Yeah, great.
Right, but let's not stall there. Let's keep moving. We can all start moving. We can all keep moving to improving our health.
Okay. Book after this is going to be How Not to Age. Yeah. What's that going to be all about?
Yeah, so longevity. Okay. So basically there was a consensus panel of all the greatest longevity experts in the world actually pulled together by Big Pharma to identify it turned out to be 6, to identify the major pathways to basically develop longevity drugs. What are the pathways of aging? Because they wanted druggable targets. And so basically the book as I conceive it now is to just go through each of those pathways and see if there's any lifestyle interventions, any foods that affect those same pathways. So potentially we get the benefits without the risks. We'll only know when the research is done.
How long are you going to live for?
As long as I can. It's possible. There's with our improvements in biotechnology, all we have to do is live long enough to live forever. I mean, there may be a point where we'd be able to extend human life, a year every year, and then we're off. So
Or we could upload your consciousness in the cloud. Can you imagine
let's
that?
do it. Let's do it.
Dr. GREGER
oh
forever.
my God. Then I don't have to take breaks to eat, and I can work full time.
And you can be in 2,000 cities at once.
There we go.
As opposed to 200. And after this, what are the other books coming up after that?
I want to do a book on eating for cancer survivors.
Okay.
And so basically right now you get diagnosed with cancer, people say, eat whatever you want, or, comfort foods, or we just calories to keep on weight. And there's actually data on cancer, not just prevention, but cancer survival, including randomized trials. There's a big body of evidence out there. And we have tens of millions of cancer survivors out there, and they're not being told the power that they have with their to prevent recurrence, to improve survival rate. So I think that's the next book. After that, I want to do mental health, just a straight mental health book, because there's all this data now on not just like improving mood for already healthy people, but for schizophrenia and major depression and manic depression. There's data out there, and I'd love to take a year and do a deep dive into that.
Okay, based on diet.
Based on diet.
diets.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you? Do you ever get a chance to kind of take a step back? Because you seem like you're in the trenches every single day, working on like the short-term stuff, the medium-term stuff, the long-term stuff. Do you ever get to take a step back and just check on your North Star and make sure you're going the right way, make sure you're taking care of yourself?
That's one of my deficiencies, is that, I realized, God, if I took off a day and just thought, if I thought of something that could make me even 1% more efficient, the rest of it would totally make up for that day. Oh my God, easy. But it's a risk. I'm really risk averse. I know that if I work for the next hour, I will get this amount of work done, right? Guaranteed, right? Guaranteed. Whereas it's possible if I just meditated, or if I just thought about it, took a step back, talked to people, it's possible there's a 1 in 100 chance that I could be, 1,000 times more, and that would totally make sense for the gamble, right? The expected utility is totally there, but I know I would get this much done, and so I tend to default to, I know this work is important, and it's possible that if I thought about it more, I could be doing even more important or more impactful work, or find a new venue to get this work out there. Mm-hmm. But it's a risk. And by the end of the day, maybe I get nothing done. And this work is too important not to get nothing done, right? I mean, I live this privileged life where, if I don't do, like if I wake up and, I don't know, watch Netflix all day, and go to bed, I create something every day that wouldn't exist in the world if it wasn't for me. It's not like there's this irreplaceability. I'm able to, I spent a lot of my life doing things that other people could do, but I finally found something that I'm kind of uniquely suited to do. And if I don't do it, it's just not going to happen. And so I go to bed at night, something existing in the world that didn't exist in the morning. And that's just, so that's what drives me. And it's possible if I thought about it more, I could, but then that wouldn't exist. And so it's really, it's very kind of nose to the grindstone, just pushing it out. I feel like I found a model where I can get out information to the most people. And it's just hours. Now I just got to put in. But yeah, in the back of my mind, I have that nagging, but maybe there's a better way if you just gave it some time. But I got work to do.
And this is the way you know how to do it. And you've been doing this and this pace for what, 5 years straight?
Yeah, well, since 2011 is when Nutrition Facts started. It's funny, since I'm the limiting reagent to this whole thing, now we have 14 staff on board with this nonprofit. But I'm the one that holds everything up, right? So we have a social media person ready to jump on, but obviously the content. So we actually tried to hire somebody to basically be a second me, to, churn through the literature, come up with these scripts. And we wasted a tremendous amount of people's time. We had hundreds of applicants, and I gave them this really high bar, crazy, I had them research this very difficult question. Be like, come up with a video on this. Come up with a video on fiberglass growth factor number 21. That's a tough thing to do. So right? Sounds easy, But of course, everyone flopped. I mean, completely flopped. But then I realized, and so I was really disappointed. Everyone's time was wasted. People put in so much time. Then I realized, wait a second. A few years ago, I would have totally flopped. I mean, the only reason I can do this is because I've been practicing this. I've done thousands of these. And so I was looking for like some savant or something that could just out of nowhere do it. And so I realized that was kind of the wrong question to ask. I have to find somebody that has some glimmer of potential that I could, kind of apprentice with, I don't know. So
will you be doing that? Do you have time to do that?
But the thing is, how do you know that person how do you test that glimmer, right? I know they can't do the final thing, but I couldn't have either, right?
You got to keep finding them,
I'm just hoping someone will eventually come up to me and somehow.
Well, great leaders create organizations that scale the message. So that's ultimately your job.
Well,
but you've been doing this solo for so long. Sometimes it's look, any startup entrepreneur, including me, wants to do it all themselves because you're always the best at it. But you can't impact a number of people if you do that. And you have a staff now of 14.
Yeah, amazing.
What if that's double or triple?
Yeah. I mean, we'd be better able to kind of broadcast the message out, but we're still limited by the amount of content I can churn out.
Right, because it's up to you. You're the bottleneck.
I mean, and there should be 10 nutrition facts that are, there's so much science out there. I mean, I have to pick and choose all the time. And there should be a lifestyle fact, there should be an exercise fact. I mean, why isn't this model of just presenting the science to people? Why haven't more people taken this on?
Because it's tempting to just cut a few corners and go the roots and make it a business, and you know that.
Yeah.
But that's not an excuse, and I say this in a very loving way, for you not to find people that can help you scale your message. And I know it's difficult, and I know there's only one of you with all the ethics and the high standards and everything you do. There's only one Michael Greger, but still, I challenge you in the next 12 months to try to find a couple people that can at least apprentice with you.
It's someone watching this show right now that's gonna.
It probably is. How can they get in touch with you?
Oh, they on the website. My contact information is there. Okay. They can contact me.
You owe it to the world, because God forbid you get hit by a bus. The bus is probably carrying broccoli tomorrow. Then what happens?
No, seriously.
But then what happens? It's all down the tubes, and then we lose the battle. Because not only, you said today, if you don't work, you don't create the piece of content, which I agree. But if you don't create the piece of content, the wave takes over. Because the industry is pushing against you.
That's
you know
true.
That. So it's not only you don't create one thing, but you lose the war.
Right. I always just naively assumed, well, the more information I put up, I mean, the views will just go up. And I forget, well, everyone else is creating content, so constantly diluting whatever you're putting out. And so it's this struggle to keep the
and welcome.
Anyways,
I'll just leave that with you.
I'm wearing my bike helmet.
Do you take breaks? Do you take a week off?
No breaks. No day off. Never.
Are you a workaholic?
I am a workaholic, but in a
good
good way.
Yeah.
No, but
that's what all workaholics say.
No. I mean,
that's what all alcoholics say. I can stop anytime I want. But all workaholics say that too.
No, but what are they doing with it? What are they contributing to the world? If you're a workaholic at the World Health Organization, good for you, right? I mean, if you're but I mean, I think workaholic has a negative connotation. People, they're neglecting their, friends and family for some accounting job or something where they're just making money for somebody else and they're not really contributing to the world. In fact, maybe adversely contributing to the world, depending on what they're doing. So in that, right? But for somebody who's dedicated their life and realizes how many lives they can save, I mean, the fact that they're doing this work, I mean, they should do more of it as much as they can. Obviously, look, if you, right? I mean, people burn out. I don't want to encourage people to. I'm able to keep up that pace, and so it's hard for me to justify pulling back unless I needed to. One of these days, if I can't sustain it, I'll do whatever it needs to do. But while I can do it, I'm doing it.
8 years strong. What's a daily habit for you that's non-negotiable that allows you to be Dr. Michael Greger? What's the one thing that you just do every day, even when you're on the road, no matter what it is?
When I'm on the road, everything falls apart. I mean, I assume I'm going to get nothing done. I mean, that's just the baseline assumption. Then, when I do get a little bit done, then that's all gravy. I mean, that's all on top. I just have to assume, because for way too long, it was so frustrating. I think I'm going to do this much work, and then whatever happens, missing a flight. Well, okay. So always have to go on the assumption, never going to get anything done. And too often, that's often the case. So I'm just treading water on the road, trying to keep ahead of email and just, so when I get back, I can get back to work instead of stuff building.
No meditation, but in terms of training.
I did a month. So someone challenged me. You see where I am challenging people. Just give it a month. See what someone. So I knew about the. So I actually have a stress release chapter in the book, and I talk about the meditation data, and I realized there's some good data. And so someone, and I was just like, well, there's no way I could fit in. You know, it would just eat up too much time. Someone gave me the same plug. Said, okay, look, give me a month. Try for a month. Right. That's all I asked. That was September 2019, meditated for 10 minutes every day, every single day of the month, even when I was traveling.
Okay.
And in the end, lost 5 hours of work.
Didn't do anything for you.
Nothing that I could, I don't know, maybe I'm just, I don't know.
You tried it.
I tried it, yeah, and I didn't,
And you just didn't feel it.
The hope was that it would make me more focused or able to work. But I feel like I'm so, when I hear about some of the benefits people ascribe to meditation, I feel like I've already had them. You know, that kind of equanimous or whatever. You know, and just like being able to totally focus. You know, there's like the Pomodoro technique where people work for like 40 minutes at a time, and that, like 40 minutes, 40 minutes. You know, I'm able to just completely surround myself and dive deep and arrive hours later. In fact, that's why I, do the walking treadmill. I actually developed coccydynia, which is inflammation of the bottom of the tailbone. I was sitting for so long without moving before I started doing a standing desk and a walking desk that I was actually like necrosing my tailbone because for hour after hour without moving at all because I was just so involved.
So focused.
So I realized, so that was part. Okay, got to move.
I think it's because you're connected to your mission and your purpose, and it's so aligned with who you are. That's why I think you can focus so well. I think most people just never have that perfect alignment, if any alignment at all.
Right.
So maybe they have to force themselves in meditation. That's my guess with you.
Yeah.
A couple questions. Best day of your life, worst day of your life. What were they?
Oh my God.
We go deep here a little at the end.
Oh, all right. The best day of my life was when I for the first time in my life where I taught, I was a teaching assistant at the kind of intro biology at Cornell. And so I taught for a year, and I got the feedback from the students at the end. Everyone had to write, what they thought of all the teaching assistants. And reading that feedback, it's the first time I ever taught in my life. And I loved it so much, just absolutely fell in love with teaching. And reading, and this was like, I learned the Krebs cycle really well. I mean, how in depth can it? But I remember I started crying. Like I just really connected with people and was able to, and I remember that as like that's what I want to do with my life. I want to teach. I want to share, right? Like I love the research, but without the sharing, it seems so selfish. Like I got all this great research, it's all in my head. But what's the point of being knowing stuff if you can't give it to people? And so to be able to translate that hard concepts, like I know it, now you know it. Like there's just something. So I don't know. So that was like my closest to a bliss point I've ever had in my life, where it's just like I know what I want to do with my life. And I didn't know how teaching would take, but I was like, whether I'm going to be a professor or whatever, but like I knew this is what, because I knew I loved it, but to get that feedback that like people really feel that it was being reciprocated.
Yeah.
I knew, so that was the day I knew what I wanted to do with my life.
And that made you who you are today.
And so now I'm reaching people by the millions. Like, I mean, it's just mind blowing, right? Yeah. So it's that like multiplied, right?
Okay. That's best day. What's worst day?
Best day. And the worst day was this last year. In October, when I, with a tragic ending of a 13-year relationship.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
so sorry.
For which actually the book played a big role. So it's actually bittersweet now that the book's coming out.
How so did the book play a big role?
It overwhelmed my life.
Oh,
I mean, as much as I neglected everyone in my life before.
Okay. Is this what happens when you get so involved in something?
That was. I mean, yeah, it's hard to. You're talking about when you're all in, kind of black and white, and I have that, I don't know. I got really productive. I got really productive, and it was intoxicating. The amount of, because I was able to just basically delegate once I found out that I didn't have enough time to write this book, I was like, well, okay, I have to delegate everything in my life. Anything in my life that someone else can do, it has to do. So, I mean, we hire more staff, we just and then I was able to get into this zone of productivity that I've never had in my life.
Wow.
And I just had this privileged spot of I had total control over my days, right? No interviews, no anything. And I was able to churn out more work than I ever have in my life. And it just got intoxicating. And so
relationships
the book,
suffer when you're doing
everything else. And so the rest of my life crumbled.
Right.
Around me while this was happening. It was about a year ago now. And this book's coming out, so there's a little bittersweetness. I'm very proud. It's the biggest thing I've ever taken on in my life. But it left a bit of a trail of calamity in its wake.
But still worth it in your mind?
It's worth it, okay. because we're talking about life and death.
Yeah, true. You must have been in a flow state for months on end there when you're doing that. Yeah. I have a mentor, and he said, Brian, there's no work-life balance, there are work-life choices. Some people accuse me of working too much sometimes, Dr. GREGER, but sometimes I feel like it's super important, and I also love it.
Right. And so, is it this so what I struggled with was, is it just because I love it so much, right? I mean, so I'm so privileged to be able to, it's not just I'm so selfless and I'm just sacrificing for, no, I actually love it. I would be in the library, if I had no website or anything, I'd be it's such a fascinating mysteries. I want to get to the bottom of stuff. So it's I do that as a hobby, and the fact that my hobby can help people, right? And so, so I derive such satisfaction at it, but then to have the moral component of the lives I'm impacting, it's kind of a dangerous mix if, there's anything else at stake.
It is, because there's an ego component and the selfless component, and you can bounce back and forth and then justify them, and you're in the flow and loving it, so it's easy to kind of justify that, and then there's collateral damage. So, what scares you?
The bus, that broccoli-filled bus. No, there's no, we don't have a backup plan. I have videos scripted out for probably about a year at this point. So actually, the website, we keep going. Well, someone would have to narrate them or something. But the content, but then there's, it would be hard for someone to step into this role. And the thought of what I built just disappearing and not having that resource for the world. Everything I've written down, how I do everything, but could we find someone to kind of step into the field? That really scares me. And then now I have the staff. Can you imagine what would happen? Their livelihoods are based on this thing keep going, and so it seems like such a fragile, thread there.
Maybe instead of the next book, you should create the architecture of a plan to where this continues forever.
I need somebody else.
The financing and the structure and the recruiting. I'm telling you, this would be a great thing to talk about.
There is somebody out there who wants to, but you have to, it's something you got to dedicate your life on. But it's so satisfying. You can say, anyone out there wants to save a lot of lives, I've got to
contact you.
Contact me.
What keeps you awake at night?
Literally all the time is the work. When I'm that immersed in work, which I have been for this last year, I can't turn it off. My brain is solving puzzles while I'm trying to go to sleep, and that's a problem. Yeah. So that's really been now, and it's only when I'm really immersed like that. But that, when that's my whole world, my brain just keeps working on it. Now it's possible that's the reason the next day I'm able to create some amazing connections and so I had to do a sleep chapter because there's actually ways you can sleep to accelerate weight loss. And it was depressing. Sleep medicine, really depressing, because not sleeping enough is really bad.
It is bad.
It is really bad. Yeah.
Bad for you and
bad for me
and bad everything.
Oh, yeah.
Hard for
and it's a real kind of a false economy. You think that it's if I sleep less, I find I'm not as productive when I'm unconscious. That's the, but But it's this kind of false economy where not only are you less productive, but studies show you fail to realize you're less productive. So people who sleep deprive themselves, they feel like they're working at 100%. And they're like, well, maybe those other schmoes can't hack it. But if you actually test them, they're just.
Yeah, it's something you have to watch out for sure.
Yeah.
You think we're going to make it as a species, in this world? There's all this craziness going on. You read the news and you look at our diets.
Craziness, but on the other side is the anti-craziness. I mean, there's people in the streets, right? I mean, like the climate march. I mean, millions of people in the streets over the climate, which is so impalpable for most people, right? I mean, the fact that, I see the beauty in that. Maybe I come from such kind of a cynical perspective that kind of any counterweight to the, is seen as like this glorious thing. But when I see something like that, I realize we just have to make it to the other side. Yeah. And the other side is avoiding, nuclear annihilation or some of these, biological warfare agents and things like that could really set civilization back. So, there are people working on these kind of existential threats. And I see them as doing the same kind of important work I'm doing. They're protecting like far future populations. I'm protecting people right now, and maybe one of these people right now will go become a scientist and save us from the, whatever AI apocalypse in the future.
Yeah, it's crazy to see the kids on the street at these protests.
It's beautiful.
Right? Yeah, it's a big one in London. Michael, I always ask people a couple questions at the end. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Dr. GREGER, I guess he wasn't doctor then, and give that you're at Cornell, maybe in Ithaca. I know you were undergrad there.
Oh yeah, undergrad. Yeah.
If you had to give him some advice based on everything you know now, what would you tell that young man?
Oh my God.
The following success secrets are only available inside the London Real Tribe, where you get exclusive access and insights from our high-performance guests on wealth creation, productivity, leadership, morning routines, health, and well-being. To join our tribe community, go to londonreal.tv/tribe. Now, let's continue with the show.
Look, the books are incredible. If anybody's even thinking about this stuff, get How Not to Die, pre-order How Not to Diet, because it's going to be gangster. Everything you do is amazing. Your stuff is incredible. I really think you are really alone out there in the space because of the way you do it, your ethos, nutritionfacts.org, the fact that you put everything, you donate all the profits away. I mean, you're literally like a man on a mission. Like, I'm not going to compare you to Jesus Christ. There's something close to that, and I really appreciate everything you do. And look, I know you sacrifice a lot in your personal life to get this mission out there, and I think people really appreciate it. I know I do. So really, honestly, really appreciate you and everything you do. So thank you for coming back to see us.
Anytime.
I guess we'll see you on another Saturday sometime in the future. But don't forget about us. We're part of the people that can get this message out there.
No, I'm back next year.
Okay.
Right? April, May, I'm coming through Europe.
Yeah, let's do it then.
Can't wait.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Always a pleasure.